Now to the latest in the debate over guns in America and growing calls for gun control since the Newtown shootings. You know, as much as we hear people wondering if it's appropriate to debate the topic in the immediate wake of gun tragedies, I had similar concerns about debating the subject tonight on Christmas Eve. Frankly, it would have been my preference to talk about something else tonight, but given the timing of Newtown and the ensuing debate and the first public statements by the NRA on Friday and Sunday, it's unfortunately a conversation I think we need to have tonight. We begin with those comments from the most powerful gun lobby in the nation. This weekend, the NRA stuck by its guns that every American school should have an armed guard.
If it's crazy to call for putting police and armed security in our school to protect our children, then call me crazy.
NRA has blood on its hands.
On Friday, amid protesters and refusing to take questions, the head of the NRA unveiled his plan, belittled by some. Sunday, Wayne LaPierre finally defended himself.
When that horrible monster tried to shoot his way into Sandy Hook School, that if a good guy with a gun had been there, he might have been able to stop.
The murder massacre in Newtown, Connecticut has led even NRA supporters to call for some control on guns and magazine clips. But the NRA and its supporters, who blame the media, the entertainment culture, and a lack of mental health care, are having none of it.
You're saying that the gun control debate shouldn't be part of this at all?
Sure. I mean, Congress is going to debate this. I just think it's not part of the ultimate solution on this.
At least one school district in New Jersey will place armed guards in each of its schools, to the disapproval of the governor.
You don't want to make this an armed camp for kids. I don't think that's a positive example for children.
A new ABC News Washington Post poll shows a majority of Americans continue to favor more restrictions on gun ownership. But all this may be the reason other Americans are flocking to gun stores. Shelves emptied just this week.
We've never seen anything like this. We have the Christmas business, the hunting season business, and now we have the political business.
This subject was all over the Sunday political shows yesterday, but of all the comments from elected officials that we heard over the weekend, none was more powerful on the topic of guns than those of a friend of our show, Newark Mayor Cory Booker.
I don't know if anybody here has seen somebody shot. I have. I don't know if anybody here has had to put their hand in somebody's chest and try to stop the bleeding so somebody doesn't die. I have. And what frustrates me about this debate is it's a false debate. It's a false debate. This is a convenient trick to try to divide our country more. Most of us in America, including gun owners, agree on things that would stop the kind of carnage that's going on in cities all over America. All the shootings in my city, only one I can find was done with a law-abiding citizen that's mentally stable that bought a gun. I'm not afraid of law-abiding citizens that buy a gun. Buy the guns you want. What the problem is in America right now is that a terrorist person who's on the no-fly list could go into the secondary market today and buy weapons. We need to shut down these secondary markets.
All right, so in this segment, let's focus just on the politics of what's going on. And we'll start with the NRA presser on Friday from Wayne LaPierre and his Sunday conversations yesterday. A lot of people think he did not do the gun lobby any favors with what he said. What was your take on those comments, and do you think he's hurting his cause?
It was a disaster of a press conference from every perspective and every optic except the NRA's base. I believe that for many years up until now that the debate around gun control has not been about guns. It has been about the role of rural life and rural communities in an increasingly suburban and urban country. And in the wake of a tragedy like we just had in Connecticut, it is finally about guns.
You're saying
they can't win that debate.
You're saying people have been clinging to a way of life that seems to be eroding somewhat from our...
Eroding, fading some, and the discussion around guns has been a stand-in for discussion about certain parts of America. Let it be about something else, but now it's actually just about guns.
Interesting.
And they can't win an argument on guns.
Dominic, bad weekend for the NRA?
Bad press conference, bad weekend. Things in all likelihood will only get worse. In terms of what the NRA did, Republicans that want to agree with their position, they made, elected officials I'm referring to right now, that press conference made it almost impossible to agree with the NRA's position. So thus, they have given supporters that they will desperately need, should these votes come up, a reason to distance themselves from the NRA.
If it was really about guns, they would shut down the NRA and in a year create a new institution and a new entity to discuss the legal and cultural and social issues around gun ownership. But the NRA is done. It's toxic.
But for generations, we've been hearing that the NRA is the biggest obstacle to any sort of gun control legislation. Do you think they've done themselves so much damage that that is no longer the case, that there is now room for compromise and room for a deal to be struck?
I think the biggest mistake the NRA made was that they've put themselves in such a corner where they're going to have to be challenged now. It's funny what you just said, that the NRA may have to go, because that's exactly the sentiment where I come from. They have done so much damage to themselves that supporters of gun rights and supporters of the Second Amendment may do themselves a favor to just say, listen, the NRA has to go, let's start all over again.
So what are the pieces of gun legislation that we think might actually be achievable? I mean, do you think an assault weapons ban can happen?
Yeah, I believe that discussing the type of weapon, no one's talking about law enforcement, nobody's talking about first responders or military. We're talking about civilians owning weapons that are capable of discharging so much ammunition in such a short period of time, they have no purpose other than to kill.
Military type weapons.
Right.
So I agree on the assault weapon, but the question is, what are the loopholes? Because as we saw from the last ban, right, in terms of, there's a ban, but then the gun manufacturers they just change the gun a little bit, or the weapon a little bit, where it sneaks right past the loophole. But hopefully there'll be a ban on the amount of ammunition that you
those
can carry.
Extended clips.
Those extended clips. I mean, for the life of me,
or
right
micro-stamping on ammunition.
Well, that may be a tougher sell. I mean, even in New York State, that's been a tougher sell, because a lot of people argue that's not effective, or that it's prohibitively expensive.
Let's try it. Let's try it. Anything's better than the tragedies that we've been enduring.
Finally, how much political capital is President Obama going to spend on this debate, and how much should he spend on this debate?
A lot. Yeah. He's going to spend a lot on it. His legacy is riding on this now.
And parents need to mobilize. There needs to be a million parent march on NRA headquarters.
Interesting.
Something's definitely going to happen. When the president, I know he went to the other shooting locations, but when he went to Newtown, Connecticut, with 20 little babies murdered, he was putting his legacy on the line. And I think that we're going to see something's definitely going to change.
And unfortunately, the headlines are no friendlier today when it comes to gun violence. There are new reports that we'll get to. This conversation continues on the other side of the break. Plus, America's gun culture, the real-life cost, as we scan today's headlines. And yes, they are bloody headlines again. And our gun-happy media. Let's face it, guns are glorified in pop culture. Should they be? Is it time to ask tough questions of Hollywood? That's next. Stay with us.